Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Indie Book Review. And I actually wanted this to be the last review of the year, but due to work schedules and New Year's party and whatnot, this is now the first review of 2019, which is almost better. So, yay! And today I am reviewing Far Side of the Moon by Jeannette Bedard, which is the sequel to 100 Day 115 on an Alien World. So, as it's no secret, I loved the first book. Just loved it. So, this book really had a lot of big shoes to fill. Because it not only has to continue the story, but it has to live up to the expectation of what the first book was. And that's not an easy task. So, any criticisms that I have, just please take it with a grain of salt. It's nothing that really kills the book in any shape, way, or form. But let's begin this. So, first thing, plot. So, it takes place immediately after the first book. Lucy Snow and her son have been kicked out of the conglomerate ship, basically out of the conglomeration, all in all, and has been sent down to Thesson to join the settlers. And they are not happy about that. The only reason that she was even let in was because of her son and his serious illness, that nobody really knows what's going on with, or about, or why it's even happening. And people are not entirely pleased to have Lucy Snow on the ship at all. They're kind of okay with the kid. You know, he's alright. A few people don't really much care for him. They're not really kid people, I guess. Or maybe they can't disassociate him with Miss Snow or whatever's going on there. Anyway, so a planet with two suns finally gets nighttime. And it's like a week of night or whatever, or a week or 5 days or something to that effect. It only happens every 5 years. It sounds plausible. It sounds reasonable. So there was no real problem with that. And as soon as the suns go down, the entire planet, or at least their area where it's nighttime, gets hit with one hell of a mud storm. Like, they can't do anything. They can't go outside to help anything out. And this stuff is covering, and I mean just coating their solar panels with mud. So once the suns do come up, they can't get power. And on top of all of that, their computer AI has got a virus which is siphoning power into little inconsequential areas, which is causing power outages and eventually just makes the place go dark. So, they have to go and get a new power source and chip all the mud off and all that once the mud storm ends. And there's just all these little side things going on. Margot and Gary are trying to figure out just what Joe is getting on about with the conglomerate and his conspiracy theories. And they talk a whole bunch about mentally transferring someone's consciousness into somebody else, and there's that whole side plot there, and yeah, it just continues to build up the shit, and honestly, that almost kind of drug the story down a little bit. It's not that conflict is a bad thing, because it's actually really necessary in terms of a plot. But you get to a certain point where you can only just build up so much shit before it starts to get a little bit more redundant and just wonder, holy fuck, how are they going to actually survive this? How are they going to get through this? I mean, it's one of the reasons why I never really cared for the Odyssey, is because it just so much piles on to the point where it's almost not real to get out of this without some serious casualties, without a lot of people dying, or without some major shit going down. And while some major shit did go down, it wasn't this. It seemed like a lot of the problems were just quickly handled. So, despite the plot being actually really, really good and very engaging, I'm gonna give it 4 stars just because it did tend to really build the shit too much. I mean, it's not like in the first book where it's a saboteur and people are dying left, right, and center. In this one, 2 people die on the colony, or in and around the colony. 2 people die. One due to the virus, one due to a consequence of the ending that I'll get into later. But yeah, 4 stars. Pretty good. Pretty damn good plot. Characters. The characters are pretty much the same people as they are in the first book. And in a lot of cases, that would be considered a terrible idea, a bad thing, but because it takes place immediately after, and the book takes place over the course of a couple weeks, nobody really changes that much in a couple weeks unless something major and substantial is happening. And while major stuff is happening, it's kind of coming off of other major shit happening, so people are really just living and adapting to what's going on around them. They don't really have a lot of a chance to change in terms of personality, and it's not a lot of time for them to change in terms of personality, so that it actually didn't draw me away from anything like that. Margot is still a wonderful character. Gary actually gets a hell of a lot of character development and a hell of a lot of scenes in this book, actually. I mean, in the first one, Gary got scenes, but it was mostly him feeling sorry for himself for not getting to know Margot better, and seeing him in this book actually being a character and actually working with Margot and him getting to know her better and them actually starting to build even a little bit of a relationship going on there, it's actually just nice to see. I really enjoyed that. The side characters are all great. They all have their own voices. They're all very well written. They're all great. So there's nothing that I can really nitpick at or nothing I can really pick apart. So yeah, characters once again are 5 stars. Alright, writing. I'm not gonna lie. Jeannette Bedard's writing style is a major win for me as a reader. She writes in a way that really speaks to me. And, I mean, the book's not written specifically for me or anything like that. That's just her writing style, and it's the style of writing that I particularly enjoy. She's very direct, straight to the point of this is what it is, but not being afraid to describe what she needs to describe as well. So, I definitely like her style of writing. I genuinely enjoy it. It's the style of writing that I enjoy reading, so there might be a bit of a bias going on here just in the style of writing that it is, but it's a 5-star writing for me. Because, yeah, she is very direct and straight to the point, not bogging things down with pointless detail, but not being afraid to describe things when they need to be described. So, yeah, it's great. Imagination. How imaginative is this book? Fairly imaginative, actually. There have been several points where I'm going, holy shit, this is actually neat. This is interesting. I really want to know what's going to happen because of how things are being put forward. I mean, there's nothing there that hasn't been done before, but that stuff that has been done before has not, at least as far as I've seen, been done in this style or in this context. You know, you got a woman in the 1950s talking about Margot Murphy, who wasn't born until 300 years later. So she's wondering what's going on, and there's all this really neat stuff that I'm not going to spoil, because frankly, you really need to read the book, especially to really get how and why she knew who Margot Murphy is, and it really gets into what's going on with Julian, which is also really cool and imaginative, and the whole consciousness projection thing, also really neat and really cool to look at. And the way that she does the consciousness projection is honestly almost original in its own way. I mean, consciousness projection is something that's been in science fiction for a very long time, but I've never seen it done like this. So that's actually really, really cool. So for imagination, I'm giving it 5 stars. This actually is a very, very well done way of projecting her imagination while also putting forward ideas that have been done, but not in this way or in this context. So, yeah, 5 stars. And the ending. The ending was pretty damn good, actually. And this is where spoilers start. So if you haven't read the book, read the book, come back to this point, and yeah, you can. I get to hear my opinion on it. So, Margot has transferred her consciousness through the wormhole to the people on the far side of the moon. She has warned them. She's kind of bouncing around now, trying to get back because the wormhole closed. She manages to get the wormhole back open. She goes through back into her own body. There's a bit of a side effect with red butterflies being in her vision every once in a while, or kind of often, really. But that's neither here nor there because the Nigel 2 AI has projected itself as well into Miss Snow because Nigel and the conglomerate have a tendency of putting chips into people's heads for this reason, actually. And yeah, he goes into Miss Snow, and there's a whole fight going on, and he just swan dives off the ship, or off the center module, or oh god, what is this actually? It's kind of like a big shed of some sort, of sorts. I can't remember the exact wording for it, so I'm sorry about that, but yeah, does a swan dive, kills Miss Snow, projecting his consciousness back to where he goes, or that's what's assumed anyway, is that Nigel just left Miss Snow's body probably mid-free fall and let her die. And then it cuts to 3 weeks later. Gary's pissed off because he'd warned Margot not to do this and not to do the consciousness projection, and he's pissed off because he sees that as a betrayal, and he's comparing her to his last ex-wife, and there's a bit of a characterization there that I didn't really care for as much, but it didn't really take away from the character. You know, you can tell Gary is a very damaged person in the first book, so this is not a stretch to imagine that Gary would actually be like this. I thought the ending, despite being very well done, was a little rushed. It was a little too quick. Nigel's here, then he's gone. Miss Snow is dead. That's all it really is. Like, the whole thing with Margot being in the projected consciousness thing, that actually was a fairly sizable chunk of the book, but once the final confrontation started, it was just kind of a bang, 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 done. And while that's definitely not a bad thing, it was just a little too quick, especially that last chapter where it's Gary and Neil are boxing, they're talking about Margot, Gary gets huffy and walks off, and then Lucas gives Margot the head of security title. And you get all this stuff, there's all this build up, and we gotta wait till the next book for it. So, congrats on making me want the next book again. The book, so ending, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. It was a little quick, but nothing that really took me out of it. Nothing that really hindered the experience or made me go, that could have ended a little better. No. It was actually a very good ending. I would have just a little bit more than what it was. But that's just me. So, all in all, this book is very, very, very good. It's a 9 out of 10 book. That alone should speak volumes. It's great. I loved it. And I honestly cannot wait to read the next one. Whenever that comes out. Whatever. Yeah. So, that's all I've got for you guys with this book. I hope you enjoyed the review. And I hope you read this book. I really genuinely hope you support this author. She is a phenomenal author, does a bang up job with her books. And yeah. If you would like me to review your book, let me know in the comments below or send me an email at the email address provided below. And yeah. Have a good one, everybody.